Welcome to Module 3 of the course, where we're going to be rapidly growing your YouTube channel, getting you more views and subscribers and attracting your ideal audience of potential clients. Because that's always our main goal with YouTube, bringing in the people who need your help the most, who are eventually going to become your paid customers and clients. And so when it comes to growing your YouTube channel, broadly speaking, there are 3 main ways to get free, real YouTube views. And number 1 is getting in suggested videos, which means YouTube recommends your videos to people on the home page or on the sidebar next to a video someone's already watching, and so on. The second way is getting in search results, which means that when someone is looking for something specific and types a phrase into the search box, your videos get displayed for them. We'll cover this very in depth in lesson 3.2. And then the third way is promotion, which means we bring viewers from outside of YouTube to come and look at your videos. And this can be done with communities, like we'll talk about in lesson 3.3, and also through other social media platforms, like we're going to get into in lesson 3.4. Now, all of these different methods are great, but getting suggested and recommended by the YouTube algorithm is typically how videos go viral and how they can rack up millions of views in a pretty short time. So today in this lesson, that's exactly what we're going to be focusing on and talking about how the algorithm actually works. Well, certainly nobody knows every single variable that the algorithm considers. I can assure you, we do know enough to know how to be on the winning side of the algorithm and have it start heavily promoting our videos. But before we get into the specifics, let's cover the fundamentals of what the algorithm's all about so we're all on the same page. So, YouTube primarily want to keep people on their platform as long as possible. But since around 500 hours of content are being uploaded to YouTube every single minute, the people at YouTube can't possibly look at each video to see which ones are the best and which users would like to see it the most. They have to rely solely on user data and machine learning, which in other words is the algorithm. But contrary to popular belief, the algorithm isn't biased towards certain creators, certain channel sizes, certain genres, any of that. The YouTube algorithm simply wants what is best for YouTube as a platform and as a business. This means its goal is to show videos it thinks users want to watch so it can keep people on the platform for longer, which in turn means more users see adverts and YouTube make more money. As simple as that may sound, that is the algorithm's primary purpose. And once you realize that that's its goal, you can try to accommodate that to get the algorithm on your side. And bearing all of this in mind, it makes total sense that one of the metrics the algorithm cares about most of all is watch time. In other words, how long are people spending watching your videos? Because if people are watching your videos for longer than they're watching other similar videos, the algorithm is obviously going to want to push your videos instead to keep people on YouTube for longer. And I cannot stress enough that watch time and also the percent of the video watched, which is called audience retention, those should be one of your highest priorities of all. You should be more focused on improving those than improving your views, because if you do that, it's going to massively increase the chances the algorithm starts heavily promoting your videos. The other metric, though, that the algorithm really cares about the most is something called click-through rate, which is often just referred to as CTR. And this means what percentage of people who are shown your video actually click on it. Of course, this again kind of makes sense when we consider the algorithm's objective to keep people on YouTube, because YouTube only have so many spaces they can show videos to people. They've got the homepage, the sidebar, these different places where they can put videos. But if that space is limited, obviously the algorithm is going to want to show the videos that get the most clicks. So, whilst there's no correct amount of watch time or click-through rate that's going to make the algorithm push your videos, if your main focus is on increasing those 2 things, you really can't go far wrong. Now, although watch time and click-through rate are the big 2 things to focus on, as mentioned, there are many other factors the algorithm considers as well, such as how much engagement the video is getting. But these other algorithm factors aren't as much of a mystery as people make out. Just always think about what YouTube wants, because that's what the algorithm is going to promote. So it's obviously not going to like it if a lot of people exit YouTube after watching one of your videos. But on the flip side, they are going to like it if someone starts their YouTube session from your video and then goes on to watch lots of other videos. Which is why if lots of people are binge watching many of your videos back to back, YouTube will keep pushing them more and more because it knows these videos keep people on the platform for longer. And so it's going to keep pushing it to a wider and wider audience if those people still respond the same way. So that's the gist of how the algorithm sounds. Not too bad, right? That's simple enough. The hard bit is actually getting those metrics up, increasing our watch time and click-through rate, increasing engagement. So we're now going to go through some very specific strategies for all of those different things. And let's start with the big one, how to increase your watch time. Number 1, always start your videos with an enticing hook. So many people start their videos with a very slow, generic intro with irrelevant information, which causes a lot of people to leave right away, which is really terrible for watch time and audience retention rates. Instead, we always need to start with a bang. So you should put more effort and thought into the beginning than the rest of the video, because it's no use having a great ending if nobody's even getting that far. The first 30 seconds are really crucial. Now, one way of creating a good hook is using a preview of one of the most exciting elements of the video right at the start. And you'll see a lot of big YouTubers do this. It's like a short teaser of what's to come that makes people want to carry on watching. My favorite type of hook, though, is owning the video by promising the audience what they're going to learn and get out of the video. For example, if I was doing this training as a YouTube video, I could open with something like, in this video, you'll learn how to beat the YouTube algorithm so you can start getting the views you deserve and getting your first viral hit. That's a hook. People know what they're going to get. So, no matter how you decide to start your video, really put some thought into how you can make it as intriguing and captivating as possible, something that really grabs their attention and makes them want to continue watching. Another way you could do that is open with something very intriguing or unexpected, like a question related to the topic that the video is based on, and you say, I'm going to answer this question later in the video. Because then that kind of creates this open loop in their brain where they have to watch to find out the answer. Let's talk about the second thing you can do to increase watch time, which is pay attention to your analytics. The majority of people are not using the extremely valuable data YouTube is providing them. In your YouTube studio, in the analytics section, you can see which videos are performing best in terms of the amount of watch time and the percentage of the video that people watched. But one step further than this is under the audience retention section in the analytics. You can see at what point in the video people stopped watching. And if you examine this for each video you post, you'll start to notice the bits where people are losing interest. So you know in future videos to not repeat that thing or do something slightly different at that point in the video. You'll also be able to tell the effectiveness of your hook by how sharp the drop-off rate is right at the start of the video. On the flip side to that though, if there are parts of your video where nobody really drops off, you clearly had their full attention. And so in future videos, you should be doing more of whatever you did there. It's really easy to overlook how useful this data is, but it's showing you exactly where you're losing people. So you can fix that for the next video and have much better watch time. A third strategy for increasing watch time is to include pattern interrupts. We all know that our attention spans are pretty awful these days. And if people feel like they know exactly what's coming next in your video, they're more likely to click away. So to avoid this, we want to make our videos a bit less predictable and a bit more intriguing and unexpected. Many of the things we talked about in the last module are very useful for this, such as having text and graphics appear on screen, especially if you've got a sound effect alongside them. Also using jump cuts as well, as opposed to one continuous video of just you speaking to the camera. I also find that if you zoom in slightly on a jump cut and then zoom out slightly on the next jump cut, it feels like the shot is changing slightly each time, which again just makes it a bit more interesting, and so it typically increases audience retention. But pattern interrupts don't just come in a visual form. You can also use pattern interrupts by saying things that are unexpected or even just throwing in some unusual vocabulary or metaphors. I mean, another example that's a little bit strange, but I noticed that in videos where I clapped during the video, at a relevant point obviously, that people watch longer. because a loud, unexpected noise jolts their attention back to the video. So the point here is simple. Keep them guessing a little. Change the tonality of your voice, the music, change your background or location midway through the video, anything to interrupt the pattern and hold their attention. Because you could be saying the most interesting and useful thing in the world, but if it's just one continuous shot of you speaking to a camera with nothing else happening, a lot of people would still click away. We have to do these interruptions to our home video to hold people's attention for longer, because that's definitely going to raise your watch time. But now let's move on to the fourth strategy for increasing watch time, which is to make longer videos. Because let's just look at the maths here. If a viewer watches 50% of your video and it's a 1-minute video, well, that's 30 seconds of watch time. As opposed to if you made a 10-minute video, well then if they watch 50% of that, you'd be getting 5 minutes of watch time for every single viewer on that video. And if we think back to what the YouTube algorithm wants, keeping people on the platform, we already know they'd rather promote the video that people are spending longer on. However, this doesn't mean you should drag out a 3-minute video into 10 minutes by packing it with filler, because that would cause a lot of people to click away early on, which would of course hurt your audience retention. YouTube aren't going to want to promote a 10-minute video if people are typically only watching 1 or 2 minutes of it. So my point is, longer videos work extremely effectively as long as you're not making it longer at the expense of quality. And once again, you'll be able to tell by monitoring your analytics and seeing if increasing the video length is hurting the audience retention. Because if it isn't, then longer videos definitely make sense. But now at this point, you may be thinking, well, what's the best video length then? And the truth is, it does depend on the video. Having said that, if you want something a bit more exact to work with, I would say 8 to 15 minutes seems like a great target to aim for. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is that once your video is over 8 minutes, you'll be able to turn on mid-roll ads so you can earn more money per video. And just as a side note here, videos used to have to be 10 minutes to turn on mid-roll ads, which is why in the past a lot of people recommended make your videos 10 minutes or longer. But YouTube have now reduced it to just 8 minutes, which is good news. It means you can earn more money. But
the main reason I say 8 to 15 minutes is that it's still reasonably long for a video. Enough time for you to build up a good amount of watch time, but without it being so long that it's unrealistic people would want to watch it. For example, far less people are going to check out a video that's an hour long. And even if they did, most people don't have an hour to sit through a YouTube video, so the retention rate would probably be quite poor. Whereas 8 to 15 minutes, most people have that amount of time to sit and watch a video if they like it. So don't arbitrarily cut or extend a video just to try and fit a certain video length. If you have a short video idea, go for it. If you have a really long video idea, go for it. But do bear in mind that if you can increase your video length without much impact on audience retention rate, it would always be very beneficial to do so, and it's an easy way to build your watch time. But now let's move on to a fifth way to increase watch time, and one of my personal favorites, which is to include more stories. Because after that last point, you might be thinking, yeah, that's all well and good about increasing the video length, but how do I make my videos longer while still holding people's attention? Because just throwing more and more information in is going to be overwhelming and probably unnecessary. But the good news is, stories are your secret weapon. Not only do they help with our whole infotainment strategy by making dry information more interesting and memorable, but they can significantly boost watch time because once you start a story, people want to know how it ends. Whereas if you're just listing facts like, do this, and then you could do this, people will get that information and then they'll just leave. Instead, always try and attach a story to the point you're making. For example, explain why this point you're saying matters, or how you got to that realization. Maybe give an example of the impact that doing this thing you're talking about had on you or someone you heard about. Anything that adds more context, and ideally adds some emotion to it. Always try and do that for every point you make. Because the point you're making may only take 30 seconds to say, but the story behind it or a story related to it may take several minutes. So this will allow you to increase your watch time while simultaneously making your videos more entertaining and engaging in the process. It's win-win. An example in this course was where I mentioned the story of the Chinese bamboo tree, which has nothing to do with YouTube. but it was a more interesting and visual way of illustrating the point I was making. Because I've realized that people say they want just the information, but really, they stay for the stories. And if it wasn't for the fact I was trying to make this course so comprehensive with information, I'd be loading every point with a story. The problem is, because there's so much information in the course, we'd be here for hours and hours every single training if I did that. But if I was telling this same information on YouTube, I would be using way more stories to give more context, make the whole thing more emotional, and as a result, I'm very confident it would lead to more watch time. But let's move on to a sixth strategy for increasing your watch time, which is don't mislead people with the title and thumbnail. Because if you notice a big drop off in your audience retention rates right at the start of the video, the problem may simply be that people thought they were getting something else. For example, if the thumbnail isn't at all relevant to the video, or the title suggests the video is about something totally different, or could be misinterpreted, some people will click on the video, but then they'll click out right away because it wasn't what they were expecting or what they wanted, which is obviously very bad for both watch time and audience retention. A seventh way to increase your watch time is don't give all the gold away up front. In other words, don't skip the foreplay here. Give people a reason to keep on watching longer. Don't give all your answers and the best parts of the video right at the start. And just to be clear here, I'm not saying you can't give a teaser of what's to come at the start. I'm saying it's also worth dropping hints about interesting things to come later in the video. For example, mentioning something intriguing or unusual and saying, but we'll get to that later. That's a line I like to use. Keep giving people reasons to carry on watching rather than having a video that answers a question, but then you give the whole answer away in the first 1 minute, because then people aren't going to watch the rest where you just ramble on. No, you need the gold to come a bit later in the video so people have that reason to keep on watching. Okay, but now let's move on to strategy number 8 for increasing your watch time, which is to form connections between your videos with a strong call to action at the end. Now, that may sound confusing, but it's not, and it's actually one of the most powerful strategies, not only to bring your channel more watch time, but to get your videos suggested by the algorithm much, much faster. Because most people end their videos with their generic speech that starts with, "Thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe," and most of the audience then immediately click away. If you do that, you'll probably see a sharp drop off in your analytics. Instead, we want to end our videos strong and with a clear instruction to go and watch another of your related videos. Because if someone made it to the end of any video of yours, they'd almost certainly enjoy another video of yours on a fairly similar subject. So, as well as adding an end card so they can click straight to another video of yours, finish the video with a couple of sentences really selling them on this next video of yours, and briefly explain why they should go and watch it right now. You can even have arrows pointing to where the end card is, just to hammer the point home. So instead of just that normal speech that trails off where you say, "Oh, thanks for watching, blah, blah, blah," no, instead you're ending very directly by saying, "Guys, if you enjoyed this video, you're gonna love this video right here. This is gonna tell you X and then tell you why. I think it's perfect for you if you enjoyed this video, so I'll hopefully see you there." Something like that that's just really calling attention to this next video of yours. And doing this not only helps you get more views, obviously, and therefore more watch time, but it helps form connections between your videos. So you're kind of training the algorithm that people who like video X from you also like video Y. So it learns to start suggesting both of those videos more. And so that can have a very positive cumulative effect when you start ending all your videos with a clear call to action. And this creates the effect of people binge watching your videos because they'll get to the end of one of your videos, but then there's a call to action to go and watch another, so they get to the end of that one, there's another call to action to go and watch another of your videos, and you kind of send them down the rabbit hole so they can explore lots of your channel. But now let's move on to method number 9 for increasing your watch time, which is to make better videos. And I realize I'm kind of stating the obvious here, but I just wanted to drive home the point that one well-made video that really holds people's attention is almost always going to be better than 2 very rushed videos. Quantity is good, like we talked about before, but not at the expense of quality. Because the reality is that watch time will almost certainly increase along with your chance of getting suggested by the algorithm if you just focus on making even better content. Keep trying to level up every video, improving a little bit more, both in terms of the information and the entertainment value of your videos. Now, the previous module should have hopefully helped a lot with that and allow you to make more professional feeling content. But of course, always focusing on the fundamentals is important for watch time as well. Making sure your equipment is set up well so that the audio and picture are clear. Making sure the topics you're talking about are interesting and helpful. Making sure the video isn't too complicated and confusing. All of these different things that help make videos better. And if you're already feeling overwhelmed by all these different strategies for increasing watch time, focus on this one in particular. If ever in doubt, just try and make better videos, because obviously that's going to encourage people to want to watch them more and lead the algorithm to promote them more. But now I do want to give you 1/10 and final way to increase your watch time, because it's a very powerful strategy, which is to utilize playlists. Now, for this one, I'm not just talking about increasing watch time for a specific video, I'm talking about increasing the overall watch time for your channel. And creating lots of different playlists is a great way to do this, like we touched on earlier in the course. But here's a few more specific tips about this. Firstly, we mentioned in point A about ending your videos with a clear call to action to go and watch more of your content. But a great twist on that strategy is to send people to a relevant playlist of yours at the end of your video. So rather than saying, go check out this video, you can say, go check out this playlist that I've curated with videos that I know you're gonna like if you enjoyed this video. The reason this works so well is because once someone's in a playlist of yours, it auto plays with more of your videos. So that's obviously gonna raise not only your views, but raise your watch time because people are watching more and more of your content. However, the real magic comes when this ends up training the algorithm that these videos are connected and should be suggested more. And that when someone watches one of your videos, they go on to watch more of your videos. So this is a channel really worth promoting. Again, it all comes back to your videos being responsible for keeping people on YouTube longer, which the algorithm loves. And playlists definitely do that. They hook people in to stay on the videos for longer. So the algorithm's going to recognize that. They're going to see that these videos getting lots of watch time, let's start pushing them more. However, here's an extra playlist strategy. Why not make playlists with really searchable titles and descriptions and put a mix of other people's videos from well-known creators in your niche along with some of your videos? So if you're in the finance niche, you could put some of your videos in the playlist, but then go and find some really well-known creators in the finance niche and sprinkle some of their videos in the playlist as well. Not only is this going to help you reach a wider audience as people are searching and they discover the playlist through search, but once again, it's training the algorithm that all these videos are connected and should be suggested together, because when someone watches this video from your channel, they then also watch this video from this other popular creator's channel. And so maybe if people are watching those two videos together on this popular creator's channel, we should start suggesting your videos. I hope this is making some sense, because honestly, this can work extremely well if you do this enough and with enough different people watching the playlist. And I do realize I'm throwing a lot of information at you right now, but I wanted to include this strategy as well because I don't see many people using it, and yet it can definitely help you start appearing in the recommended section for some popular creators in your niche. And I just want to clarify, with all of these different 10 strategies for increasing watch time, there's no single one of them that will immediately just explode your channel. It's more of a cumulative effect. Once you start using a few of these together and you're patient with it and you're making good content, you then teach the algorithm that people are enjoying your content and you're getting a lot of watch time from it. And that's when it starts pushing it to a wider audience and then an even wider audience, and it just grows and grows and you get that snowball effect. However, by this point in the training, you've now got plenty of strategies to increase your watch time, increase your audience retention rate, and so the algorithm is going to be loving you. But there is still that other metric that they really care about, which is click-through rate. So now let's talk about how to increase click-through rates. Firstly, click-through rate essentially just comes down to how clickable is your title and thumbnail. That's all we're really talking about when we're talking about click-through rate. And we mentioned in training 2.4 some tactics for making better thumbnails. But just like we did with watch time, we're going to go through 10 more strategies, some other tips and tricks that you should be considering to boost the click-through rate for all your different videos. The first strategy is something called fame jacking. Now, earlier in the course, we mentioned that thumbnails with expressive faces often perform the best. But of course, people are most drawn to faces they recognize. So although sometimes it may be a good idea to use your own face, it can be very beneficial, especially at the start when you're not as well known, to include the faces of famous celebrities or characters in your thumbnails. Because if you talk about them briefly in your video, you can include them in your thumbnail. The whole video doesn't have to be about them. For example, if you're a fitness coach making a video on intermittent fasting, let's say, you could briefly talk in your video about a high-profile celebrity who uses intermittent fasting, and then include that celebrity in the thumbnail. This then not only appeals to those wanting to know about intermittent fasting, but also those who like the celebrity. And in a sea of thumbnails, well-known faces really draw attention, and people often go to what's familiar. So it's surprising how much this alone, just putting famous faces in the thumbnail, as long as you mention them in the video, can really help click-through rate. Strategy number 2 for increasing your click-through rate is to create intrigue. Or in other words, make people really curious and intrigued to find out more, or to find out the answer to something. For example, I've seen people make videos on how much money they earned last year, which is a good topic, but don't then give the answer away in the title or thumbnail. That removes the need to click on the video to find out. So sometimes adding a little mystery and deliberately making people want to know more and being a bit vague is a great way of enticing people to click on your video. We want to create this open loop in their brain where they need to click on the video to find out the answer, or find out the solution, or find out what the thumbnail or title actually means, as opposed to making everything perfectly clear from the title and thumbnail and giving everything away without creating any need for people to click on the video. So always focus on creating that intrigue in your thumbnails and in your titles. Strategy 3, challenge assumptions. Challenge someone's beliefs and expectations and you'll have their attention. Here's an example. I recently saw a video where the title and thumbnail both had something like, why goals are important. Now, it may be a well-made video, but most people know that goals are important, so it's not really going to grab them. Whereas if the title was along the lines of, why you're setting goals wrong, or anything that applies something new and different to them, they're more likely to click. It presents an information gap in their knowledge that they need
to fill by watching the video. And so it's often good to seem like you're offering a unique or different perspective than all the countless other people on YouTube. Not only to stand out, but because it creates scarcity. It's implying they can't get this same information elsewhere, and so they need to click this particular video. So try and create the impression in your title and thumbnail that your video is different. Challenge their assumptions and be unique. Now, the 4th strategy to increase your click-through rate is clickbait. Sort of. Now, clickbait is a divisive topic, but there's really 2 different kinds of clickbait. One is just blatantly lying about what the video is. For example, a really sexual thumbnail that's absolutely nothing to do with the video. This is never good because not only will the audience not like being misled, but it's going to hurt your audience retention when people get to the video and then realize it's not what they wanted, so they just leave. However, the other type of clickbait is elements that bait people into clicking, but then the video actually delivers on what's promised. So it's perhaps a little over the top, a little dramatic, but it's not lying. And this can be really good to do sometimes. In fact, if you look at almost any big YouTuber, I guarantee most of them are doing this. Because the actual definition of clickbait is content whose main purpose is to attract attention and encourage visitors to click on a link. But that's exactly what a YouTube thumbnail is supposed to do. That's its main purpose. So although we don't want to lie about what our video is in the title and thumbnail, we also don't want to play it too safe and make it too boring. We want to really hype things up and make them sound as exciting as possible because click-through rate is so crucial, and we don't want your great videos to go to waste just because the thumbnail isn't very clickable and it doesn't bait people into clicking. We want something that makes people think, but I have to click that. For example, if I was doing a video on YouTube, if I just put YouTube tips, yeah, that describes the video, but it's not really very clickable. Whereas if you contrast that with something like YouTube secrets that can 10x your channel growth, they're both talking about the exact same thing, but one is much more clickable. And yes, some people might say, oh, it's a bit clickbaity, but if it actually delivers on the promise, and there really are secrets and tips that can help someone do that, well, then you're not lying, and so it's okay. The only time clickbait isn't okay is when you're misleading people. If you're actually delivering on what you promise, then I think sprinkling in some titles and thumbnails that tease people a little into clicking is actually a good strategy to follow. Don't overuse this, but don't be afraid to back yourself and hype your videos up and make them as dramatic and interesting as possible, as that is going to have a huge impact on your click-through rates. Strategy 5 now for increasing your click-through rate is to spend more or spend longer on the thumbnail. Thumbnails are often an afterthought for most people, but they should be a priority because underwhelming thumbnails are often the main reason for low views on a video. So personally, I recommend getting them made by a graphic designer. We'll talk about this later in the course, but it can be done very cheaply and will almost certainly raise your click-through rate almost immediately. Alternatively though, if you do want to make them yourself, that's still fine, but it means that you shouldn't just be knocking something basic out in 5 minutes. You need to spend the extra time to make something that's as visually appealing as possible. So that means testing different colors to make it more eye-catching and vivid, trying a couple of different image and text combinations until one jumps out at you as being the most enticing. Because I cannot stress enough that a good thumbnail really can be make or break for a video. Strategy 6 to increase your click-through rate is to be more polarizing. A study of almost 70,000 links showed that the most powerful headlines are polarizing. The stuff at the extremes, whether overly positive or overly negative, those generated the most interest. And I'm not saying you need to go too over the top. I'm just saying we need to think more like a headline writer who's deliberately crafting something that's going to be either a little controversial, a little unusual, something a bit polarizing that's going to get people wanting to click. Strategy number 7 is to keep the text very simple and short on the thumbnail. Because the thumbnail will be seen at a very small size, so don't include multiple sentences, just 3 or 4 words is normally plenty. You also don't want those words to be confusing, so put away that thesaurus and make it really understandable without any thinking needed. For example, the text on the thumbnail could be, "Start doing this," or anything that's relevant to your video whilst being short and to the point. The font should also be very clear and easy because we want something that people can read and see at a glance. So just bear that in mind. If you're the one designing the thumbnail, make sure you zoom out on it so you can see it at the size people are actually going to be seeing it at on YouTube. Strategy number 8 for increasing your click-through rate is to avoid banner blindness, which is when people see the same thing so often, they stop noticing it so much, which is often what happens when people see the same adverts in the exact same place. They just become kind of oblivious to it. Now, when it comes to your thumbnails, having a similar format for each video, that can be good, so people instantly recognize your videos if they're in like a similar kind of style. But the point I'm making here with banner blindness is that each thumbnail has to be notably different from your other thumbnails. And sometimes mixing things up a bit can be good because it makes it more noticeable and helps create more curiosity. A bit like a pattern interrupt that we discussed earlier. Whereas I see some people with their channels, the thumbnails almost all look identical. They're not unique to each individual video. And sometimes you want things that are a bit different, a bit more unusual, because that's going to help eradicate any sort of banner blindness towards your thumbnails. Strategy number 9 for increasing your click-through rate is to A/B split test. Now, just to highlight the importance of having a high click-through rate, I know that some big channels are now creating multiple different versions of their thumbnail and running an A/B split test using cheap paid traffic to determine which people click more. And obviously the one that gets the most clicks is the one that they actually use for the video on YouTube. Now, that for a small channel is kind of overkill. But if you've made a really great video, you could still create 2 versions of the thumbnail and just ask some people which one they prefer, and the one that gets the most votes, put that one live. It's sort of like a mini version of an A/B split test, but without having to pay any money. But perhaps an even better strategy here is that once you've posted a few videos, you'll start to learn the average views you get in the first 24 hours. And if you have a video that's significantly lower, so you post a new video and it's just not doing as well as all your other videos, you could try switching the thumbnail to see if there's an increase. And don't be afraid to change the thumbnail of really old videos if they aren't performing well. Don't change it if it is performing well and it's being heavily promoted. But if it's not, this can sometimes help revive a video a little bit better. So whatever version of this you try and do, having some kind of A/B split test where you create multiple versions of the thumbnail and test which one works best can be a very good strategy. And although it's extreme, once your channel is making some money, you may even want to go the route of running paid traffic to the 2 different thumbnails or multiple thumbnails and then using the one that does best, because at the end of the day, once you're making money from your channel, if you've got a thumbnail that performs significantly better, well, then it's better to know which one that is right at the beginning so you can use that thumbnail, because otherwise you'd be missing out on views. So don't underestimate the power of this, and don't just accept that the first thumbnail you make has to be the thumbnail, because sometimes a different variation, even if in your opinion it doesn't look quite as good, it may perform better. Let the market decide which one's better. And so bear this in mind as another point if you want to go for something a bit more advanced with your thumbnails. At the beginning, I don't think you should be creating multiple versions if you're doing it yourself, because you've got so many other things to worry about. This is more of an advanced tip for later once you've outsourced some other jobs within your YouTube channel. But now let's move on to the 10th and final point for increasing your click-through rates. And for this, we're going to be talking about search engine optimization and human search engine optimization. Because, as we'll discuss in the next training, the title of your video is normally going to have a searchable element to it. For example, something like how to get started with investing, because that way people can find it much more easily in the search results. And this is all well and good because your thumbnail is often going to be where you're applying the 9 techniques we've just discussed. Things like being polarizing and creating intrigue. So it's fine to have a searchable title because you're still doing all of these different things in the thumbnail. However, once you learn about search engine optimization, it's going to be tempting to try and stuff your title with as many keywords as possible, which makes the title less appealing for a real person to click on, which is what I think of as human search engine optimization. So here's a strategy I quite like to try and get the best of both worlds, which is have a very searchable phrase at the start of your title, so something like how to get started with investing, but then in brackets, have a few words after that to make the title more interesting and clickable to an actual person. For example, how to get started with investing, brackets, in just 7 minutes. Or how to get started with investing with this unique methodology. Anything that just adds a bit of extra incentive for a real person to click on the video. And the reason I'm saying this is because there's always going to be a slight trade-off between making your videos as searchable as possible and making them as clickable as possible. And so that's why it's important that your thumbnail you're using as many of these different techniques as possible, but that you still try to include a little bit of them in your title if you can, even if that is just adding something in brackets after your main searchable title to make it a bit more appealing to a real person. Because if you just try and stuff loads of keywords in your title, yes, it might be well in search, but that's going to be bad for click-through rate because it's not going to be very appealing to an actual person to click on. So it's finding that balance, which takes a bit of experimentation, but hopefully with these strategies and with the next training, you'll be able to find that sweet spot for yourself. So take a deep breath for a minute because we've covered a lot there. And you're obviously not expected to be doing all of these things right from the start. It's more about just gradually adding more and more in. So over time, you're doing more and more to increase your watch time and click-through rate, which, as we said, those 2 metrics, if you can boost those, you're in a really, really great position. But even though watch time, retention rates, and click-through rates should be your main priority and the things you focus on the most, there is another factor that the algorithm considers that we can definitely influence, and that is engagement, because it gives you social proof, which is going to help further position you as an expert in your niche so you can sell more products and services. Because just think about it. If you're visiting a channel and it's got lots of likes, it's got lots of comments, you can see lots of people are interacting with the creator. Well, obviously that's going to increase their credibility and their perceived trustworthiness and probably increase the chance that you want to engage with the video yourself. So clearly this is another metric that's worth considering. So let's now go through some strategies to increase your engagement on your videos. And the first and simplest way of all is to ask your audience for engagement. And I'll admit, I was a little bit against this at first because I didn't want it to seem like it was desperate or anything. But then I realized there's a very good reason that all of the top YouTube channels ask for likes, comments, and subscriptions. And that reason is it works. The reality is that if someone is reminded to like the video if they enjoyed it or to leave a comment, they are more likely to do that. A lot of people just forget otherwise. But of course, you don't have to beg for engagement. It's often as simple as reminding people, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit that subscribe button as I've got some videos on the way I think you're really going to enjoy. That's pretty harmless. No one's going to mind you doing that. It's not going to come across as desperate, and it's definitely going to help increase your engagement. A second strategy, though, is that when you're asking for engagement, make it a bit more fun. Graham Stephan is a great example of this. He makes a big point of destroying the like button every video to help the algorithm. But it's become sort of a meme on his channel, but people actually kind of enjoy. He makes it a bit funny. And as a result, he gets a lot of likes. So I think it's worth considering how you can make asking for engagement a little more fun, interesting, or different from what everyone else is saying. Strategy 3 to increase engagement is to have engagement reminders mid-video. Now, most people either ask for engagement, like likes and comments, either right at the start of the video or right at the end. But at the start, you haven't yet provided any value or given people any reason to like. And unfortunately, most people won't even make it to the end of your video, no matter how great it is. So I think actually the best time might be midway through your video, right after delivering a really great or interesting or funny point. That can work really well because that's the point people are most likely to want to go and like your video or leave a comment or share it even. And you don't even have to verbally ask. You can use thumbs up animations in the corner of your video just as a quick reminder without interrupting the flow of your video. Just search on YouTube for thumbs up animations you can download. Or alternatively, say yourself after the point you've made, just point out, if you're enjoying this video, it would really help me if you could hit the like button. I'd really appreciate it. So that sort of thing, especially after a good point you've made, can be very powerful. Strategy number 4 is to ask a question or give people a reason to comment. Because just reminding people to leave a comment is nowhere near as impactful as asking them to comment on something specific. The majority of YouTube users don't comment on anything at all, so they need a reason. They don't want to think of one themselves necessarily. So one way of doing this is asking a specific question that's relevant to your video or your niche, and that can really help prompt responses. Another thing that I've tried that works quite well is at the end of a video saying, if you made it to the end of the video, let me know below so I know what a legend you are. Kind of really encouraging people to leave a comment and giving them a reason to do so. Or it could even be as simple as adding some text at some point in the video that says, if you notice this message, comment XYZ below, and just have some sort of in-joke with your channel that people who notice that little bit of text in the video are going to comment below because they want to kind of show off that they noticed that. All of these things, they just help drive that engagement up further, but you need to be giving people a reason to actually engage in the first place. Strategy number 5 is to post some comments yourself and pin one of them. So in other words, get the conversation started yourself. Leave a couple of comments on your own videos when they're first posted to get the ball rolling. My favorite way of doing this is to ask a question in the comments and then pin that comment so it's at the top of the comment section, and a huge amount of people will scroll down to the comments while the video is playing, and they'll be much more inclined to comment if the pinned comment is prompting them to do so by asking something interesting, which is pretty much the same as the strategy we were just talking about, asking a question, but rather than doing it in the video, you're doing it in the comments below, which is actually very effective because if someone's already in the comment section, they see a question, their instinct's probably going to be to answer it. And of course, it doesn't have to be anything overly elaborate, just anything to get the conversation started. So, for me, if I was doing a comment that I was going to pin on a video about YouTube, maybe I would say something like, let me know below what your next video is going to be about, because people would probably want to show off what their next video is going to be. So anything that is going to get a reaction out of people. But now, the 6th tip for increasing engagement on your videos is that slightly controversial and polarizing topics do work better. Again, just like with thumbnails and titles, I'm definitely not saying you need to go over the top and be deliberately very controversial. But on the flip side, being very safe and vanilla and having quite generic content, obviously that's not going to get as much engagement. So really what I'm saying is be 100% yourself, as people buy into you and not just your information. And remember, saying things that sometimes spark a bit of a conversation is very good. It gets people talking, it gets people engaged, even if they don't always fully agree with you. That's better than just generic things that don't prompt any kind of engagement or response. Just as a side note here, remember as well, if you are being a bit more controversial and polarizing, you may get a couple of dislikes that just comes with it, but dislikes count as engagement as well, so they're not hurting you. Strategy number 7 to increase engagement is to push your viewers to hit the notification bell. Don't just say subscribe. Really stress the importance of hitting the notification bell for your channel so that they actually get updated when you post new videos. And this strategy is something hardly anyone does, yet it makes a really big impact. Most people just say, subscribe to my channel, which, yeah, that's better than nothing, but really push for the notification bell to be turned on instead, because most users on YouTube do not realize that just because they're subscribed to a channel doesn't mean they'll actually see the videos necessarily. They only get told about new videos from that channel if they hit the bell icon and turn on all notifications. And I'm sure there's a lot of people on your channel who would do that if they were prompted to do so, which would then obviously lead to more views for you, more watch time for you, all the things we want. But not only that, the algorithm would then see that someone watches a lot of your content because they've got the notification bell on, so they're getting notified of a lot of your content, and so they're watching more of your content, and then the algorithm will start pushing your videos more because it's being watched so much, and you'll start getting them recommended more. So this simple thing of pushing users to hit the notification bell rather than just subscribing actually has lots of knock-on effects. So it's very powerful, yet very underutilized. Strategy number 8 is to use competitions, giveaways, and prizes. I've seen this massively boost engagement for several different channels. I would say though, use it a bit sparingly, but obviously it's no secret that people love free stuff, no matter how small. Even if it's just a tiny prize, people are going to be commenting and liking more if they've got a chance of winning something. So this is a surefire way to boost engagement and activity on your channel if it's needed. Just do it in small bursts. Don't have loads of competitions and prizes because you don't want that to be your main source of engagement. This is more just like a little booster. Strategy number 9 is to reply to every comment. And I cannot stress this point enough. Until you have at least 1,000 subscribers, you should be replying to every single comment and leaving hearts on comments as well. Not only does this help build an engaged audience, because people prefer commenting if they know the creator is actually reading them and might reply, but it literally doubles the number of comments on your videos. That's making them seem much more active and dramatically raising engagement. For example, if you get 10 comments on your video, just by replying to each, you now have 20 comments on your video. So it's very worth doing this, not only to help build that sense of community on your channel, but also because it's going to help you in terms of growing with the algorithm. And our 10th and final strategy for increasing engagement on your videos is to answer every comment with a question. Because if you really want to build engagement up fast, whilst also creating more loyal subscribers and fans in the process, as well as replying to every comment, make sure you end your reply with a question for the other person to respond to, which can be as simple as something like, oh, thanks for checking the video out. How did you find it? Or even better, ask something specific about your niche. Thanks for watching the video. What's your main struggle with X at the moment? Because you may even find a potential client this way if you're engaging with the comments and finding out where people are at right now and how you can potentially help them. And obviously, they'll appreciate that you're trying to help them out and offer tips and advice, even if they do realize that you have a slight ulterior motive. The point is, answering each comment with a question is a really great way, because suddenly if you've got a whole comment chain and you're getting like 6 replies on every single comment, well then those 10 comments have now become 60 comments. So it's another way of massively increasing engagement without really that much work. And so there you have it. We've discussed the main metrics the algorithm cares about and plenty of strategies for each one that will definitely help the algorithm recommend your videos more and help your channel grow. Obviously, do remember there are some other lesser factors involved too, which the algorithm factors in but aren't as important. For example, the algorithm slightly prefers more recent videos as people tend to prefer fresh content. But that's not a big contributing factor. If you've got an old video that's performing very well, that'll still get promoted. Ultimately, though, you have to remember YouTube have limited space for promoting videos, so they're essentially running continual A/B split tests between different videos that get uploaded. And so if initial viewers interact well with a video, the algorithm will start pushing it to a slightly wider audience. And if that audience respond well, they'll keep pushing it to a wider and wider audience, which is how a video can go viral if it keeps winning those split tests against competing videos. And if you use all these different strategies we've mentioned in this training to improve your watch time, your audience retention, your click-through rate, and your engagement, your video will have a great chance of winning those tests and keep getting promoted to a wider and wider audience. Because if at every stage the audience keeps responding well and the video keeps performing better than the other videos currently being promoted alongside it, your video can keep getting promoted to a bigger and bigger audience. But be aware your video is literally in competition with all the other videos the algorithm thinks a user may enjoy, which is largely determined by the type of content the user watches most. Just as a very final bonus tip to wrap up here, if you do get a video that goes really viral and crazy with the algorithm and it starts pushing it heavily, make your next video that you upload a very similar video. Base the next video on a similar topic or on a similar kind of theme if you can. I've seen so many cases where this proves very effective and causes the next video to go viral, so to speak, as well. So this simple tip alone can literally lead to another viral hit right away. But the exciting part of all this is we're only just getting started with growing your channel. There's loads of gold still to come that's going to explode your channel's growth. So I will see you in the next training.